Doing. Welcome back to another video. We'll talk about stuff and come to you live from northern Israel with an update about Israel at war. And yeah, we remain in a state of war here. Unfortunately, with Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we are on the edge of our seat, making sure that nothing happens with the HTS group and their ilk in Syria, and of course with the Houthis in Yemen and the Islamic Republic of Iran, and all number of enemies that are facing Israel throughout Judea and Samaria and Israel's interests around the world, as well as right here in Israel. So, what is the latest on these protests that we see happening in Gaza against Hamas by local Gazan people? Well, the answer is the end result has yet to be seen. However, if you've been following what I've been telling you the last week or so since these protests started, about 5 days ago or so, you will know that there is, or that I've told you certainly, there is absolutely evidence that a portion of this is absolutely a psyop orchestrated by Hamas. And I know many of you haters will say, no, what are you talking about? People who are, in full support of the protests don't want to believe that this is a psyop by Hamas, but I'm telling you, some of it is. We've seen evidence of it. It is undeniable. And on top of that, some of it, as I said, is most probably real. In fact, a growing portion of it is real, from what we can tell. The government of Israel obviously has come out and endorsed it and said that we hope that it's real and that it keeps growing. Obviously, that would be the response from the government of Israel. But to be honest, the response from the government of Israel through its defense minister was lackluster at best. Why? Well, first of all, he said it in Hebrew. And there are plenty of Arabic-speaking spokespeople in the IDF spokespeople's unit. They use them frequently when talking to people in Hamas, talking to people in Gaza, and to people in Judea and Samaria. And there's no reason they couldn't have done the same thing this time. It's a shame that they didn't, because it was a missed opportunity, but they certainly could do it again and speak directly to the people of Gaza in their own language from the point of view of the IDF. There are plenty of great and wonderful people in the IDF spokesman's unit who speak fluent Arabic, who are in fact Arabs themselves, Arab Israelis, and there's no reason not to use their skills since they are an amazing asset to the Israeli Defense Forces and to the government of Israel. Now, that said, it is absolutely something we want to encourage. We do want to encourage a growing amount of people to protest Hamas. But the reality is, as I said before, you will probably see these protests get cracked down upon by the brutal forces that currently control the population in Gaza. The Hamas are notorious for cracking down extremely violently, extremely brutally against people that protest their rule. And they've done horrible things in the past and will certainly continue to do so unless they are stopped by their own people and or by Israel. And since it looks unlikely that they're just going to single-handedly choose to stop on their own, you'll notice that they've done exactly what I said they would. I told you that they would probably make some kind of an offer to give the people that they rule over some kind of, bread and circus, if you will, by having, a kind of relative time during Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan, feasts at the end of each day of Ramadan, which they did in the last days. In the last days, they brought out all kinds of big feasts, and the tables were laden with food as high and piled high as the eye could see. People were certainly filling their bellies in Gaza, and that's on top of the additional 3,000 calories a day that they're already being rationed by all the food aid that arrives into Gaza. And that, in case you're wondering, is the 8th highest calorie count of consumption by any people group on Earth. Literally, they eat more calories than any other country or people group on Earth, apart from 7 others above them. Right? So out of the hundreds of or even thousands of people groups on Earth, the population in Gaza eats the 8th most calories per day. So when they tell you they're starving, sorry, but it's not a lie. Certainly there are people in Gaza who are not eating enough. And the reason for that is because Hamas steals their food and then illegally resells it on the open market at extremely highly marked up prices, which is a double war crime. First of all, they're stealing food aid. Second of all, they're redistributing it as sold products on the open market, which is illegal for them to do because it's food aid that's supposed to be made available for free. And they're charging ridiculous, exorbitant prices, which is absolutely illegal for them to do. They're not supposed to charge anything. So it's at least 2 war crimes, if not 3, depending on how you look at it. Give me 1 second. Right, I'm with you again. Sorry about that. I had to light this thing. And so we will see what the results will be, or the fruit, what kind of fruit plays out, or is born from this entire experiment that we're seeing happening right now. And it is an experiment of sorts. Anytime you have any kind of protest against such an oppressive group as Hamas by people on the street, it is absolutely a very risky experiment. There are people putting their lives in danger, and already there have been some people who have been disappeared and some who have been brutalized. There's a report of one young man who lost his life because he came out and protested against Hamas, and they identified him and captured him and ended him. So that's how they treat protesters in Gaza, and all the people on the left in the West are being fooled by Hamas, and this is just more evidence of it. Right? This is breaking the brains of people who, until now, have been supporting Hamas. Now suddenly, because they pretend that Hamas cares about the Palestinian people, even though Israel and friends of Israel are constantly saying no, they don't care about the people of Gaza, and they are the oppressors of Gaza. And if you want Palestinians to actually be free, you need to get rid of Hamas. And all the anti-Israel people and anti-Semitic people are saying, no, Hamas is great, Hamas are the heroes. Well, the Gaza people are saying, no, they're not heroes. They're the problem. They're the reason we have all the problems. So we will see who exactly is right. It's very obvious to us in Israel that Hamas is the problem and that they need to go. But the chances of them just choosing to go are slim to none. But that's why you're seeing that they're doing exactly what they would do. They've been making offers for exchanging some prisoners in exchange for a ceasefire and release of more terrorists from Israeli prisons. And Israel has so far rejected those offers, even though the offer did include the releasing of the last living American hostage that Hamas holds. And the reason that Israel turned it down is very simple. Right? Israel does not want to give Hamas the ability, basically, to use as propaganda again this kind of event, and at the same time try to increase its control once again over Gaza. Right now, Hamas is feeling the pain, and they're currently unable to stop the protests fully because they are facing both the IDF on one side and the Gazan protests on the others. So they don't know, they're not capable very well of handling two fronts, right? One is an external front facing off against Israel's army, which now is unleashed against them and does not feel tied down, thanks to the fact that America's current presidential administration fully supports Israel's actions in Gaza to end Hamas and return the hostages and get Hamas out of power. And at the same time, they face an internal civil strife, which normally they would handle extremely brutally, but at the moment they're incapable of doing that because they need all of their terrorists to try to fight the IDF. So they are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they're finally feeling the pain after a good 18 months or so of this war going on. And that is why we're seeing this happening the way we've been seeing it play out. So it's not going to be an easy task for Israel or for anyone else. Including the Gazan protesters to get out of power, and including the American interests, American forces that want to, help Israel with shared intelligence and other material resources, arms supplies, etc., and political support in Congress for more arms if necessary to be sent to Israel. But we are currently seeing that there is more pressure on Hamas, and it's having an impact. And that's why we're seeing Hamas run to the negotiating table and try to get a deal in place to get another ceasefire, to release more hostages. And that's the current status quo of that. At the same time, you have Israel fending off more attacks from the Houthis in Yemen, along with the American and French and British forces that are also in the Red Sea. And the Americans are obviously taking action against the Houthis. And yes, there was the whole Signalgate scandal, if you will, which unfortunately exposed the fact that there was human intelligence on the ground in Yemen, and Israel got quite upset when they found out that this happened because it exposed some people in Israel have said that it exposed some Israeli human assets, and that is obviously problematic for Israel's military and overseas intelligence capabilities. So there is that challenge as well to deal with. It is a complex and constantly moving, fluid situation. Anyway, if you want to stay abreast of what's going on my channel, you can subscribe or like or follow or whatever you do on YouTube to make sure that you get and hit the notification bell so you get updates from me when I talk about this kind of topic, which is not something I talk about all the time, but it is something I do cover once. So, do that, and I will catch you guys in the next video. And I see you, Jean-Paul. Nice to see you. Hello to you. I'll talk to you later. Cheers. Um, sorry.